Here to discuss with us this morning, Stephen Moore, founder of the Ukraine Freedom Project. Stephen, good to have you.
Great to be with you.
The optics are fascinating to watch this morning, all these side meetings and bilats. I'm sure you've been watching with great interest, too. The president and Zelensky, they've had some talks on the sidelines already. Apparently, they're going to meet again in a short while. Ukraine's National Security and Defense Council chief also had some interaction with Secretary of State Marco Rubio. And again, the two are going to get together, President Trump and Volodymyr Zelensky, later on today, trying to discuss what can be done to bring the war to an end. Listen to this.
I spoke with President Putin on Sunday, and it's sort of the same thing. I mean, they just keep going, fighting, losing soldiers. They lose so many soldiers. This is not since World War II has anything like this happened. I settled 8 wars. This was the one I thought was going to be the easiest settled. There's a lot of dislike between the two leaders.
You sounded, the president there, that was earlier this morning when he was asked by reporters during one of these bilaterals how to get to this, end, right? How do we reach peace? He sounded frustrated in his answers. The world is frustrated by it. Is diplomacy the only pathway at this point? Is there any way, with all this dislike between the two leaders, to get to peace?
Well, Putin doesn't want peace, and the only way to make Putin stop is someone needs to make him stop, and President Trump is that person. And I think that what you're seeing is he's talking about Russia now. Russia is the problem, and we did polling that shows that the vast majority of Americans think that Putin is the problem to peace, and so President Trump is focusing on it. And here's why: because with all the attention that has been on Iran recently, not a lot of Americans know that Ukraine has flipped the script. Ukraine is winning this war right now, and President Trump likes to back a winner. The Ukrainians have hit inside Russia in 60 different locations, some of them multiple times, taking out refineries and military objects. And so, the Russian people are now waking up and seeing billowing black smoke over the skyline. And that puts Putin in a difficult position.
Yeah, in the optics, President Zelensky has been on X a number of times. He posted some of those targets, the oil targets, and then he had this message a short time ago expressing his gratitude to Canada for this new package of sanctions, as you see Volodymyr Zelensky entering the room and shaking hands. Well, he was over in the corner a moment ago in this video. There he is to the left. But it was linked to Russia's shadow fleet. Canada's Prime Minister had some comments after that post on X. Listen to this.
What we see today is unity in the G7, unity behind you and behind moving forward. There's a number of tangible ways, and I'll just finish with this. Canada today is announcing an additional range of sanctions on over 160 entities focused on the shadow fleet, as we should. Our delivery of the latest stage of Pearl packages, air defense packages, is coming. We're working more closely on production of drones together, and we'll discuss the next stage of that. But also, crucially, support for the energy system and for the winter, as well as for the reconstruction.
So time well spent for Volodymyr Zelensky in his short time there on the ground at the G7. He arrived this morning. He was shoulder to shoulder there with Mark Carney, and they issued these, these sanctions. And the U.S. issued a short-term waiver on some Russian oil shipments. The president announced that, and Marco Rubio trying to stabilize some of the energy markets. The president announced that some of those sanctions would be expiring. So it does seem to be this worldwide unity kind of coming behind Zelensky, to your point, after these successful targets and strikes on their oil refinery.
Yeah, it is. The president let some of these sanctions lapse in order to put more oil on the market to bring down oil prices. And the Ukrainians put their own sanctions on the Russians by destroying their refining facilities. And Russia is a gas station with an army. That's all they do. And, when was the last time anybody went in their home and picked up something and looked at the bottom of it and said, made in Russia? That's because Russia doesn't make anything. They dig things out of the ground to pay for their wars. And so If you can cut off the gas station revenues, then you can cut off their ability to wage war.
It's the optics are fascinating. I know you're watching every minute of it. Stephen Moore, founder of the Ukraine Freedom Project. I know you do. And I'm sure there's much more to talk about as they wind down this meeting there in France. We'll be dipping in with you periodically. Stephen, thanks for your time.
Look forward to seeing you again soon.